My mother tried to have me declared mentally incompetent and institutionalized to steal my inheritance. She didn't know I'd been recording her for 6 months. Hey friends, got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post /legal advice. I, 30M, think my mother is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my inheritance. Please help. I'm shaking as I write this. 2 days ago, I was served with papers for a competency hearing. My mother, Stephanie, 52F, has filed a petition to become my legal guardian, claiming I'm mentally incapable of managing my own affairs. The hearing is in 3 weeks. Let me provide some background. My grandfather passed away 18 months ago and left me his house and a substantial investment portfolio, roughly $800,000 total. He specifically excluded my mother from his will after she stole money from him during his cancer treatment. She was furious when the will was read. I do take medication for anxiety prescribed by my psychiatrist after a car accident 4 years ago. I work full-time as a software engineer, manage all my own finances, and live independently. But apparently, my mother has been collecting evidence of my supposed incompetence. She submitted pharmacy records showing my prescriptions, some out-of-context text messages where I mentioned feeling stressed about work, and a statement from my sister Amber, 28F, claiming she's concerned about my mental state. The petition claims I'm vulnerable to exploitation, that I make poor financial decisions, and that I need protection and supervision. It's complete fiction. I've never missed a bill payment. My credit score is 780, and I've actually grown my inheritance through careful investing. My mother has been increasingly aggressive since grandfather died. She's shown up at my house demanding money, sent me dozens of texts about how I owe her, and even tried to convince me to add her name to the deed of grandfather's house. I've always refused, which I think triggered this nuclear option. The lawyer she's using is apparently known for these kinds of cases. I've done some research and found 3 other families where adult children were placed under guardianship through his firm. In each case, the guardian gained control of significant assets. One woman lost her entire retirement fund to her appointed guardian within 6 months. I've hired my own attorney, but he warned me these cases can be tricky. The burden is essentially on me to prove I'm competent rather than on her to prove I'm not. The fact that I'm on psychiatric medication, even just for anxiety, could work against me. My mother has also apparently been spreading rumors in our community that I'm unstable and paranoid, laying groundwork for her case. What terrifies me most is that if she wins, I lose everything. My autonomy, my assets, my right to make basic decisions about my own life. She would control my finances, could sell grandfather's house, and could even determine where I live and what medical treatment I receive. I would essentially become a prisoner. My attorney says we need to demonstrate clear evidence of her ulterior motives. We're gathering financial records showing her debts, apparently over $200,000 from failed business ventures, documentation of grandfather's reasons for excluding her from the will, and character witnesses who can testify to my competence. But I'm scared. Really scared. The thought of losing my freedom of having her control my life after everything she's done makes me physically ill. I can't sleep, which ironically makes me look more unstable. Every interaction I have, I wonder if it's being watched or recorded to use against me. Has anyone dealt with something similar? What else can I do to protect myself? I feel like I'm fighting for my life here. Update 1. 2 weeks later. I wanted to thank everyone for the overwhelming support and advice on my original post. Many of you told me to check for recording devices and document everything. That advice may have saved my life as I knew it. Following your suggestions, I did a thorough check of my house and car. I found 2 recording devices, one in my living room and one in my kitchen. But here's where things get interesting. I had actually installed security cameras in my own home 6 months ago after my mother broke in while I was at work. She still had an old key. Those cameras have audio recording capability. When I reviewed the footage after finding her bugs, I discovered something that made my blood run cold and then burn with rage. 2 weeks before she filed the guardianship petition, my mother and sister came to my house while I was at a medical appointment. They didn't know about my cameras. I have crystal clear audio and video of them discussing their entire plan. My mother literally said, "Once I have guardianship, we'll sell the house within a month. I already have a buyer lined up who will pay cash. No questions asked." My sister responded with, "And the investment accounts? How quickly can you liquidate those?" My mother laughed and said, "The beauty of guardianship is that I don't have to explain anything to anyone. I'll claim it's for his care needs and transfer everything out." But it gets worse. They discussed fabricating evidence of my incompetence. Amber admitted she had been screenshotting our text conversations for months, specifically choosing ones where I expressed any negative emotion or stress. She said, "I've got at least 30 screenshots that, taken out of context, make him look completely unstable." They even discussed bribing my neighbor to testify that I had been acting erratically. They went through grandfather's house room by room, discussing what they would sell and what they would keep. My mother assigned dollar values to his antique collection, his books, even his war medals. The callousness was breathtaking. At one point, she said, "Dad always loved Jordan more than me. Well, now I'll get what should have been mine all along." The most chilling part was when they discussed my future. My mother said she had already looked into a care facility where she could place me after gaining guardianship. She said it's $500 a month and they don't ask too many questions about why residents are there. Once he's been there a few months, no judge would reverse the guardianship. I immediately took this evidence to my attorney. His expression went from concerned, to shocked, to absolutely furious as we watched. He said in 20 years of practice, he'd never seen such clear evidence of guardianship fraud and conspiracy. We filed an emergency motion with the court, including the full video and audio recordings. We also filed criminal complaints for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse. Ironically, even though I'm only 30, attempting fraudulent guardianship falls under this statute in our state, breaking and entering, and unlawful surveillance. The competency hearing was yesterday. I'll never forget the look on my mother's face when my attorney announced we had video evidence. She went white, then red, then started screaming that I had set her up and that the recordings were illegal. Her attorney looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. The judge watched the entire recording in chambers. When he returned, he not only dismissed the guardianship petition with prejudice, meaning she can never file again, but he also referred the case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. He said it was the most egregious case of attempted guardianship abuse he had seen in his career. My sister tried to run from the courtroom, but was stopped by security. Both her and my mother were arrested on the spot. The judge granted me immediate restraining orders against both of them. But here's where things get even more interesting. My attorney had been doing additional research, and we discovered this wasn't their first attempt. They had tried something similar with my mother's aunt 3 years ago, but withdrew the petition when the aunt's children intervened. We've turned this information over to the DA as well. I'm exhausted but relieved. The criminal case is moving forward and the DA seems determined to make an example of them. She told me that guardianship fraud is becoming an epidemic and she wants to send a clear message. I've also started therapy, real therapy, not just medication management, to deal with the trauma of this betrayal. My therapist says what I'm experiencing is a form of PTSD from the sustained psychological abuse and the threat to my autonomy. To everyone who messaged me with similar stories, my heart goes out to you. This system is broken and predators like my mother exploit it. I'm considering using some of my inheritance to start a foundation to help others facing fraudulent guardianship petitions. No one should have to go through this. Update 2. 6 weeks after the hearing, the criminal case is progressing faster than expected. The DA has charged my mother with attempted guardianship fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury for lying in the guardianship petition, and breaking and entering. My sister is charged with conspiracy and perjury. They're both looking at serious jail time. Here's something I didn't expect. After the arrests became public, 3 other families came forward. Apparently my mother had been giving advice to other adult children on how to gain guardianship over their parents or siblings who had received inheritances. She was essentially running a consulting service for guardianship fraud, charging $5,000 for her expertise and templates for fraudulent petitions. One elderly man, Thomas, 78M, contacted me in tears. His daughter had used my mother's template to gain guardianship over him last year. He lost his home and life savings within 4 months. He's been living in a rundown facility, unable to even access his own social security checks. My attorney is now helping him pro bono to reverse the guardianship. The investigation has also revealed the depth of my mother's financial desperation. She owes $200,000 in business debts, but also another $150,000 in credit card debt she hid from everyone. She's been living entirely on credit for 2 years, making minimum payments with other credit cards. The house she lives in is in foreclosure. She was literally weeks away from bankruptcy when she decided to come after my inheritance. My sister Amber's situation has imploded as well. Her husband filed for divorce immediately after her arrest. He had no idea about the plan and is horrified. He's seeking full custody of their 2 children, ages 3 and 5, citing her criminal charges and moral unfitness. Text messages between Amber and my mother show that Amber was promised $200,000 for my assets once the guardianship was established. The recorded evidence has become crucial for multiple cases. Now, the DA is using it in the criminal prosecution. Thomas is using it in his case to reverse his guardianship, and 2 other families are using it as evidence to investigate their own suspicious guardianships. Last week, I had to testify before a grand jury. I played the full recording and walked them through the months of harassment leading up to the guardianship attempt. Several jury members were visibly shocked. One woman was crying by the end. The grand jury returned indictments on all charges, plus additional charges for racketeering due to the pattern of guardianship fraud. My mother was orchestrating. My mother's attorney, the one who specializes in guardianships, is also under investigation. The state bar is reviewing his license after discovering irregularities in multiple guardianship cases he's handled. It turns out he had a kickback arrangement with certain facilities where guardians would place their wards, receiving $1,000 for each placement. The house feels different now, lighter somehow. I've changed all the locks, installed a comprehensive security system, and I'm slowly making it truly mine. I found grandfather's journal in the attic last week. He wrote about his concerns about my mother's greed and manipulation going back decades. One entry from 5 years ago said, "I pray Jordan will be strong enough to stand against Stephanie when I'm gone. I'm leaving him everything not out of favoritism, but because he's the only one who won't destroy what I've built. I've started the process of establishing the foundation I mentioned. It's going to be called the Grandfather Shield Foundation in honor of the man who tried to protect me even after death. We'll provide legal resources, emergency funding, and advocacy for victims of guardianship fraud. My attorney is helping me set it up and has agreed to be on the board. The trauma is still there. I jump when someone knocks on the door. I check my security cameras obsessively. I've had panic attacks in grocery stores, wondering if someone is watching me to document my incompetence, but I'm working through it in therapy. My therapist says the hypervigilance is normal after such a profound betrayal and threat to my autonomy. Update 3. 4 months after the hearing, the sentences came down yesterday. My mother was convicted on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in federal prison, 3 years of supervised probation, and ordered her to pay $500,000 in restitution to Thomas and the other victims. Since she has no assets left, her house was foreclosed on last month. The restitution will likely never be fully paid, but it stands as a permanent judgment against her. During the sentencing, the judge called her actions a grotesque betrayal of familial bonds and an assault on the foundational trust between parent and child. He specifically noted that her plan to institutionalize me against my will was reminiscent of the darkest chapters of guardianship abuse in this country's history. My mother tried to make a statement about how I had misunderstood her intentions and that she only wanted to help me. The judge cut her off mid-sentence and told her that her lack of remorse was striking and concerning. Amber was convicted of conspiracy and perjury. She received 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, and 500 hours of community service. The judge said he was giving her a lighter sentence only because she had young children, and appeared to be under my mother's influence. However, the conviction means she lost her nursing license and her job. The real shock came with the custody case. Amber's husband was granted full custody with Amber only allowed supervised visitation. The family court judge cited the criminal conviction and stated that someone who would conspire to falsely imprison their own brother for money couldn't be trusted with the welfare of children. Amber broke down, sobbing in court. For a moment, I felt bad for her. Then I remembered her laughing on the recording about putting me in an institution. My mother's attorney was disbarred. The investigation revealed he had improperly filed 17 fraudulent guardianship petitions over 6 years, collecting over $400,000 in fees. He's facing his own criminal charges now. The FBI is investigating whether he was part of a larger guardianship fraud ring operating across state lines. Thomas, the elderly man helped target, had his guardianship reversed. His daughter was arrested and is awaiting trial. He sent me a beautiful handwritten letter thanking me for my courage in exposing the scheme. He's living independently again and has reconnected with his grandchildren who had been told he had dementia. The Grandfather Shield Foundation is now officially incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit. We've already helped 12 families facing suspicious guardianship petitions. In 3 cases, we uncovered clear fraud and got the petitions dismissed. We've also lobbied for state legislation requiring stronger evidence standards for adult guardianship cases. Last month, I was invited to testify before a state legislative committee about guardianship reform. I played portions of the recording and told my story. Several legislators were visibly shaken. One senator said she had no idea guardianship could be weaponized this way. They're now drafting legislation that would require clear medical evidence from multiple independent doctors before an adult can be placed under guardianship and would create criminal penalties specifically for fraudulent guardianship attempts. The financial outcome has been significant as well. The judge in the civil case, yes, I sued them both, awarded me $750,000 in damages, $500,000 in punitive damages, and $250,000 for emotional distress. Since my mother has no assets, I won't see most of it. But the court did award me everything she owned, including family heirlooms she had taken from grandfather's house over the years. Amber's portion, $100,000, is being garnished from her future wages. The relationship with my extended family is complicated. Some relatives have apologized for believing my mother's lies about my mental state. Others still think I should have handled it within the family. I've had to set boundaries with several family members who think I should forgive my mother because she's still your mom. No. She tried to steal my freedom, my assets, and my life. Some things are unforgivable. I've been in therapy twice a week, working through not just this trauma, but also unpacking a lifetime of manipulation I hadn't fully recognized. My therapist has helped me see that my anxiety, which my mother tried to use against me, was actually a rational response to growing up with someone who was constantly scheming and lying. I'm dating someone now, Sarah, a woman I met at a foundation fundraiser. She's an attorney who specializes in elder law and has seen her share of guardianship abuse. She understands the trauma and has been incredibly supportive. She doesn't judge me for my trust issues or my need to check locks 3 times before bed. The house, grandfather's house, has become my sanctuary. I've renovated it using some of the inheritance, keeping his office exactly as he left it, but making the rest truly mine. I found more of his journals and letters. He documented years of my mother's schemes and manipulations. In one letter to his attorney, dated a year before his death, he wrote, "I fear what Stephanie might do to Jordan when I'm gone. Please make sure he knows that the inheritance comes with my complete faith in his ability to handle it wisely." Final update. 1 year after the original incident, I'm writing this final update from grandfather's office, my office now. The morning light is streaming through the windows he installed himself 40 years ago, and I can see the garden starting to bloom with the bulbs I planted last fall. My mother is serving her sentence in federal prison. She's not eligible for early release due to the nature of her crimes. I received one letter from her 6 months into her sentence. It was full of manipulation and blame, saying I had destroyed the family and that grandfather would be ashamed of me. I didn't respond. My therapist and I ceremonially burned it in the fireplace in this very room where grandfather used to read to me as a child. Amber completed her jail sentence and is on probation. She's working as a cashier now. Her nursing career over. Her ex-husband reached out to me last month asking if I wanted to have a relationship with my nephews. I said yes. I don't want them to grow up thinking their whole family is broken. We meet at parks and I'm teaching them the card games grandfather taught me. They don't know the full story, just that mommy made some bad choices. Maybe someday they'll understand. The Grandfather Shield Foundation has grown beyond my wildest dreams. We now have 3 full-time attorneys on staff and have helped over 100 families. We've successfully prevented 43 fraudulent guardianships and helped reverse 12 others. The state legislation passed. It's now called Jordan's Law. They used my name despite my protests. It requires clear and convincing evidence of incompetence from at least 2 independent psychiatric evaluations before an adult can be placed under guardianship. The ripple effects continue. The FBI investigation into guardianship fraud rings led to 23 arrests across 4 states. It turns out my mother's consulting was part of a larger network of people teaching guardianship fraud. The ringleader was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Thomas, the elderly man my mother helped target, has become like a grandfather to me. We have lunch every Tuesday. He's teaching me woodworking in his garage, and I'm helping him write his memoirs. He says exposing the guardianship fraud gave him his life back. His relationship with his grandchildren has been restored, and he's even started dating again at 79. Sarah and I moved in together 6 months ago. She brings light and laughter into grandfather's house in a way I never imagined possible. We're talking about marriage, about children who will run through these halls like I once did. She's helped me understand that trauma doesn't have to define your future, even as it remains part of your story. The anxiety I once took medication for has largely resolved. My psychiatrist says the chronic stress of living with a manipulative parent can create anxiety disorders that resolve once the threat is removed. I still have bad days. Sometimes I wake up in a panic, thinking someone is trying to take my freedom. But those days are becoming rarer. I've learned so much through this ordeal. I've learned that family isn't about blood, it's about trust and respect. I've learned that standing up to abuse, even when it comes from your mother, isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation. I've learned that grandfather's greatest gift wasn't the money or the house. It was the strength to stand against those who would exploit and harm me. The foundation is hosting its first annual gala next month. We're honoring Thomas and 3 other survivors of guardianship fraud. The keynote speaker is a senator who's introducing federal legislation on guardianship reform. Sarah bought me a new suit for the occasion, saying, "Grandfather would want me to look my best while carrying on his legacy of protecting the vulnerable." Sometimes I walk through this house and feel grandfather's presence. Not in a supernatural way, but in the values he built into these walls. Integrity, independence, the courage to stand against wrong, even when it's family doing it. His journals have become my guidebook. One entry written shortly before his death seems prophetic now. "Jordan, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're facing the storm I always feared would come. Your mother will likely come after what I've left you. Don't let guilt or familial obligation cloud your judgment. She made her choices long ago. Protect yourself. Protect what I've built and use it to protect others. That's all I ask. I'm fulfilling that request, grandfather." The storm came just as you predicted, but I weathered it, and now I'm helping others do the same. To anyone reading this who's facing guardianship, abuse, or familial financial exploitation, you're not alone. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. And remember, the people who truly love you want you to be free, autonomous, and safe. Anyone who threatens those things, regardless of their relationship to you, doesn't deserve a place in your life. The sun is setting now as I finish writing this. Sarah is cooking dinner. I can smell garlic and herbs drifting up from the kitchen. Thomas is coming over to help me install new shelves in the library. My nephews are visiting this weekend. The Foundation's attorneys are preparing to help 3 more families this week. This isn't the life I imagined when I wrote that terrified first post. It's better. It's a life built on truth, justice, and the courage to stand against those who would exploit the vulnerable, even when they share your DNA. Grandfather was right. The inheritance wasn't about the money. It was about having the resources to fight back, to protect myself, and to extend that protection to others. The house is no longer just Grandfather's house. It's the headquarters of the Grandfather's Shield Foundation. It's where Sarah and I are building our future. It's where my nephews learn that family can heal. It's where Thomas finds the grandfather-grandson relationship that was stolen from him. It's where justice lives. My mother thought she could steal my freedom, my assets, my life. Instead, her actions created a movement that's protecting hundreds of vulnerable adults from the same fate. Her greed and manipulation became the catalyst for legislation that will protect thousands more. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's transformation. It's taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and turning it into purpose. It's making sure that what happened to you becomes the reason it doesn't happen to someone else. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey. Your advice, your encouragement, and your own stories of survival gave me the strength to fight back. This victory isn't just mine. It's all of ours. The Foundation's website is now live. If you need help, reach out. If you want to help, we need volunteers, donors, and advocates. Together, we're changing the landscape of adult guardianship in America. Grandfather's Shield protects us all now. Edit. Thank you for the gold and platinum. More importantly, thank you to everyone who has shared their own stories of guardianship abuse. The Foundation has received over 200 inquiries since this post. We're working to respond to everyone. Remember, you deserve autonomy, dignity, and freedom. Don't let anyone, especially family, take that from you.